Hey everyone, Justin here. That happened. And that happened.
Yeah,
This is,
both got shaved.
in case you don't recognize him, this is Bronco. He's been in some of my videos before, some of the vlogs and stuff. And he and I, tonight, along with our friend Ananya, who didn't want to be in the video.
She's on the phone.
We watched Sucker Punch.
Da-na.
Sucker Punch.
Zack Snyder's only original film.
Zack Snyder's only original
Zack Snyder.
film.
Excuse me.
So, going into this movie, I was cautiously optimistic because, I really have mixed feelings on Zack Snyder as, a director. You know, his first movie was the Dawn of the Dead remake, which I actually liked. It's probably his only film I've seen of him that, I genuinely like. Man of Steel, mixed feelings. Batman v Superman, hate. Justice League was just really let down by, even though there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff.
He has a lot of bad movies under his belt, I feel
I was cautiously optimistic about Sucker Punch, especially because it's his only original film. It's the only film he's made that's not based on anything. And I thought it was okay.
I mean, it's one of my favorite films, so I have different opinions. I think it's really great. But
yeah.
I don't know if maybe first time watching it, it's one of those movies you kind of struggle to grasp. So
okay, so basically my theory on the movie.
All right, let's go see. Okay, so first of all,
yeah,
let's go first overall story. What you think the theme or the story was.
Yeah,
and then we'll go into what each of the battle scenes. So the film has different battle scenes in it. So we'll think what those mean.
Yeah. So in my opinion, I think it's pretty clear overall that each of the individual battle scenes ties into whatever item they're trying to get. Like the crystals that'll blow up the city are them trying to get the lighter to start the fire. It's pretty clear in my opinion that each battle ties into what object they're trying to get. Overall, in terms of what the whole story is, I think the real world is this mental hospital thing, and the whole thing with the whorehouse and trying to escape from it and everything, or a bordel or whatever it is. I think that's her life flashing before her eyes right before she gets lobotomized. And they do say at the end that, she stabs somebody, helps someone escape in the mental hospital, which is everything that happened in the whorehouse. So I think it's her life flashing before her eyes in kind of a warped way right before she gets lobotomized. I think that's what it was.
This is pretty cool. This is pretty good. Yeah. No, actually, all right. So first of all, we forgot to say spoilers alert. It's a little too late now. But anyway.
Text.
Yeah, whatever. All right. So anyway, this whole story is right that the girl gets falsely accused by a greedy stepfather who wants the money, right?
Yeah.
So he takes her, throws her in the insane asylum on false pretensions. So this is the 1950s, right? So it's really easy to throw, unfortunately, especially women. It was really easy to throw them in an insane asylum. And so that's what happens to her. She gets put there. And then there's 3 levels of the imagination of what she pictures. So when she first gets there is the real world, that really dark, everything's kind of bad. And then she spices it up a little bit with a little bit better colors, makes everything look a little nicer. And then there's which has the main guy and his little French mustache or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's the battle sequences.
Yeah, she's in the mental hospital.
Making a better situation.
Exactly. She's in the mental hospital and she imagines it being this forced prostitution house or whatever. It's almost being a forced prostitute sucks. So it's like this fantasy that she's coming up with her head is something that still sucks, but the fact that she's being forced to, serve these clients, it's her mind's way of saying, okay, here's an alternate situation that still sucks, but at least it has somewhat of a purpose.
Yeah.
It's like her mind is desperately trying to find some sort of purpose for everything that's happened to her, essentially.
Yeah. No, I mean, also if you look actually on the burlesque thing, that doctor is trying to show these girls that are claimed insane a different way to express their feelings and what they're feeling as dance. But the people who run the place are turning it into a sexy burlesque show for people outside of the insane asylum.
Yeah, the people
who run it are taking advantage of the girls that are running it there. So there's the whole corrupted people running the asylum.
Yeah, this doctor lady who's like the head doctor at the mental asylum. She's like the one good person working there, and she's trying to give these people like an outlet to explain what they feel, which is something you don't really often see in like these environments. You know, coming from experience myself. I was never in a mental hospital or anything, but I did spend some time at a special school for autistic people for a few years, and a lot of times in these environments they don't really give you an outlet to explain your side of things. They just assume, oh, you're not smart enough to understand anything, you don't, and they just dismiss you. So this one lady's like trying to give these girls an outlet to express how they see things and how they feel things, and like you said, the other staff members, who are all men, are just using it as an excuse to, you know, see some nice stuff.
And of course. And also that's really nice too about the male characters in the movie. He does a good job, I think, of making you really get a disgust and hate for, he creates all these different stereotypes in it, and it's just really great, I think. Also, I noticed, I don't know if you connected, but I thought maybe they connected some of the circles of hell to this, because it's like her hell. Like the cook is kind of like gluttony, and the one guy's like greed. And they're like, I thought maybe I'd have to go back and count and see if they have all the circles. So maybe that's one thing we can do.
I'm not like too familiar with the whole Dante's Inferno thing, but I think there's like 7 or 9 circles of hell.
There's 7 circles of hell.
Yeah. So like I don't think there's that many in the movie.
I don't think so either. But I think there's some influence from that.
Like there is still the possibility that like some of it is tied into. It's tied into that. It's kind of funny. Like when this movie was coming out, I remember commercials for this movie when it was coming out, and they just took all of the fantasy fantasy scenes, and they just put shots from those in the trailer. So when the movie was coming out, all the trailers made it look like it was some weird alternate history World War II thing. Yeah. And then you actually watch the movie, and it's not at all.
I mean, when I first came out, I remember just seeing all that and thought it was awesome, because I was like 9 years old. So this is like the coolest thing I ever saw.
Hot girls shooting guns!
Yeah, totally. You know. But now that I rewatched it, actually, it's got a lot more, I mean, the battle sequences, each one is, I think, very stylized to whatever item. So the first item they need is a map, which is, they took the Japanese kind of like look to it, because I think of the old like pictures they used to draw in Japanese culture, and it was very kind of ancient and very primitive, like not primitive, but like it's paper, you know, it's kind of so he chose like a nice character.
It kind of has that like etched design a little bit.
Yeah, he picked something really interesting that he could put to it, and then like the second item, the lighter, he thought of, whoa, what's got fire? So he's like, oh, let's take a dragon, and then better yet, a sleeping baby dragon, because that shows that each item also shows the current state of the real life person. So the dragon's not suspicious at all. So that's the guy who's not suspicious when the lighter is being taken until it's too late.
Yeah, but like the fact that he gives that warning, you know, don't wake the mother, that's like in their mind, there's this big gigantic danger that the guy could realize they're taking his lighter, and that manifests as the dragon, when in reality there's no chance of him seeing it at all, because he's so infatuated with this girl dancing, you know?
Exactly. And every danger that gets in the end of it, the conclusion, every danger gets defeated
or
something. So that's that, like every time we defeat it, they get successfully did a mission.
What?
You don't include that in your edit.
We're totally gonna include it.
We're totally including it. You're in the movie now, honey.
We're explaining situations. Also, then after we get dragon, we got, what's the next one? The knife. So we have the butcher.
Yeah.
So what is the knife made of? I thought that's it's made of steel, right? They need a piece of metal. So they thought, what's made of metal? So they did the futuristic robots they have to kill. Yeah. And the ticking time bomb is the cook, because it's very touchy, and like it's like they just kind of like out of nowhere start like trying to seduce him. Yeah. And he's like it's a lot more hard to like try and get the item from him. So it's like the biggest challenge. Yeah. And then the last one, they just stop from the fantasies, and they just decide to go into like what's happening in the real world. And then because there's the two, right? So they go from the semi-fantasy world back to the real world in the end. Yeah. So it does like a hill kind of motion of their imagination.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about this movie for me, or one of the interesting things about this movie, is that when people talk about movies and they use the term dreamlike, there's a very specific style that people are referring to when they say something in a movie is dreamlike, but this movie does not have that style at all. But I would definitely say this movie is like a dream. Like, it feels like a dream. It feels like one of those weird dreams you have where you're just like jumping around to different things and there are these really specific situations, but there's like no connection between the two. And then you wake up the next morning and you're like, okay, my brain had to think of that for some reason. So what is the connection between these things? So I would say this movie is more like a dream than most other movies that are described as dreamlike.
Yeah. Well, and also, the first sequence, I thought it was really interesting that when you first see the samurais, if you realize the three of them, there's the three goons that run the office, and the fact they defeat them is they got their attention and like successfully kind of got their attention away. So like the samurais, if you look, there's the three of them. There's the main guy and his two like bodyguards. There's the three samurais. So like it also corresponds with everything. So that's why and also the old man. What do you think of the old man?
I don't know what Zack Snyder's like religious or spiritual beliefs are, but the way I interpreted the old man is kind of they mention in the opening monologue, this one character does the monologue throughout the movie, and in the opening monologue, she mentions, who are our angels, they come to us when we need them or whatever. So I kind of interpreted the old man as kind of like some sort of angel type thing or whatever. Like, I don't know what Zack Snyder's religious beliefs are, but like that's kind of how I interpreted it, because he's in the fantasies and the visions before his real world counterpart shows up at the end.
Yeah.
So like she had to have known about him before actually meeting him in the real world at some point. And so the fact that like he worked his way into her fantasies and into her imagination before she actually met him in the real world also, I think, kind of helps the idea that he's some sort of spiritual presence or some sort of guide or something.
Yeah. I mean, I took it as he was the good in the world. So there's like that ray of hope and kind of like of inspiration, right? So there's bad, but there's also like, there's the people there's like that whole like little bit of good that's left in the world. So he's like the physical embodiment. So when they have a bus driver, when it's the guy, it's not really the guy. It's just that he represents the good. So it's probably like some other bus driver there, but it's just some guy that saw that she was in distress and needed, to get out of the situation. So he was like, but I thought it was just like he's just the ray of hope and like goodness.
What's funny is that actor, he's like this, fatherly guiding light in this movie, and you just love him so much. And I think that's the same actor who plays one of the really creepy guys in X-Files.
Really? I did not know.
I'm not very familiar with X-Files, but I know like the character he plays in X-Files is like super creepy.
Yeah. No, honestly, it's a really underrated movie. It's we got someone trying to take a picture. Quick, hide
the drugs.
What drugs? Anyway,
so
What is wrong
this
with
movie,
the camera?
though.
Why won't it click?
blooper cut 2.
Yeah.
Anyway, this movie actually got a 0 out of 0%, or it's like a 2% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's some really bad, really bad rating, and also on Metacritic it gets crap ratings. But surprisingly enough, on Google it gets like a 96%.
Yeah.
So the fans that see it love it. Critics hate it, but they hate everything. So.
It's the very definition of a cult classic. Like the average moviegoer.
It's like Donnie Darko.
The average moviegoer walking into a movie theater to go see a movie is gonna hate it.
But it's one of those movies you gotta watch 2-3 times. It's got some more depth to it,
Like there's a very specific group of people who are gonna like this movie, and
it's very stylized. It's very video game oriented.
This doesn't really have anything to do with like our interpretation or whatever, but the opening scene where they use the Sweet Dreams song.
Yeah. That
opening scene, how I actually think that's the best thing in the movie, in my opinion.
The song, sometimes I've seen a lot of movies where they use that song and it's just placed there because it's a good song and they don't use it right. But I think this movie really used that song really well. That
song not only fit perfectly, but there is just so much energy, and there's so much energy in how they use that song, and the fact that the entire opening has no dialogue at all, and yet you understand everything even with all the Zack Snyderisms, like the weird lighting and the slow-mo and everything, like all the Zack Snyderisms are in there, but he still like puts forward so much story in only 5 minutes with this song without any dialogue, and it's a rush. Like the first few minutes of this movie are a rush.
They give you the vibe of the whole movie.
And the stepfather, before they get to the hospital, the stepfather never talks, which kind of adds to this idea that he's just this evil presence. Like, because he doesn't talk, you know, it's like almost like a child's like view of an authority figure. Kind of like how in Steven Spielberg's E.T., for the first half of the movie, you never see any adults' faces. They only film them from like the waist down.
Because from the viewpoint of the child.
Exactly, and that they kind of do that in this with the stepfather. You never hear him speak for like the entire opening, and the only time you ever do hear him speak in the movie is when he's filling out the form and he's just like
treating her like an object.
Exactly. So I think the opening is really strong, and that's really my favorite part of the movie.
And you know what? I think for the sake of this, you too, why don't you guys check it out right now?
Yeah. Go
Cutaway.
Go watch it.
Where's the cutaway?
Go
Put the cutaway. Someone, cutaway.
What are we doing?
Tag!
What are we doing? What? I'm so confused. What's interesting is the title.
I did not like that movie.
I don't think anyone gets punched in this movie. I didn't see anyone get punched in this movie. And
I forget the actual like terminology. What they say sucker punch means. I mean, it's like when you sucker punch someone, right? It's when you get their blind side, so they don't suspect. Oh, I get it. All right, so nobody suspected a thing until they got caught. Right? They were sucker punching the guards and everyone at the insane asylum. Everybody got sucker punched, right? In the beginning, the girl got like sucker punched, right? When she
so sucker punch is like a metaphorical term?
It's a metaphorical term.
Oh, I thought it was like literally a type of punching, and I'm like, no one gets punched in this movie.
Well, it's both. So like the term came out of that, right? So if someone's got their back turned, some guy just comes up and randomly hits the dude, right? That's a sucker punch. It's like something you just like. You know, or it's like a blind side, right?
Oh, I didn't realize it was a metaphorical term.
Yeah,
I thought the term sucker punch referred to like
it's
an
something
actual
that comes at you when you least
type
expect
of punch,
right? It's something that's least not expected.
Okay.
So the girl didn't expect to get thrown in the insane asylum. The guys didn't expect them to escape. You know, there's so many different.
Because like the entire movie, I'm like, why is this movie called Sucker Punch? They probably just called it that for marketability reasons.
I mean, it is a pretty good name. I gotta admit.
But overall. I would say that definitely out of all the Zack Snyder films I've seen, this and Dawn of the Dead are my favorite. As to which I like better, Dawn of the Dead or this, not sure. But it's not the best movie in the world in my opinion, but I think it is worth watching just to
it's a good experience.
See some interesting stuff.
The soundtrack is very good. I love the soundtrack for it.
Yeah, the soundtrack's really good.
And also, the reviews on this film on the cover are pretty interesting because there's something called Nuts. I don't know what Nuts is, but it says it's epic, brilliant, and mind-blowing. And also gave it 5 stars. So if Nuts gave it 5 stars, I don't even know what Nuts is. So. Anyway, it got 5 stars from me. He gets 5 stars from me.
You know it's a good movie because it says so on the box.
Oh yeah, judge a book by its cover.
Judge a book by its cover. But no, seriously, I think it's worth checking out in my opinion.
Yes, I think it's very also it ties into all the sequences. I think they also saw what video games were popular at the time because I was thinking this was made in 2011 actually. So 2011, that was about when there was Skyrim coming out. Or like the Elder Scrolls were very popular, so they had that kind of Elder Scrolls feel.
Yeah, the dragon sequence has that Skyrim vibe. The World War II sequence has the Call of Duty vibe, especially with the zombies, because there are
the Nazi zombies.
The Nazi zombies
were popular.
There are Nazi zombies in this movie.
Yeah, that was popular then too, and also the Japanese is from something else too, and also
that with the snow and everything, it kind of looked a little Assassin's Creed-ish, even though. Like there's no ninjas or samurai in Assassin's Creed. Like you get like it had that vibe.
Yeah, I think the Lord of the Rings like the Lord of the Rings vibe one was just kind of
the dragon sequence in this movie. If Zack Snyder made Lord of the Rings, that's what it would look like.
Yeah, pretty much.
There's so many scenes in this movie where like if you're just channel surfing through the TV and you come across this scene. And there's so many scenes in this movie where you just come across them while you're channel surfing with no context whatsoever. It's gonna confuse the hell out of you. Like what? But yeah, it's an interesting movie, I think. Yeah.
The rating system in this country is weird.
I think that's a British DVD. I don't think that's a Czech DVD.
Yeah, I think it is a British DVD because it's all in English. I just realized that.
It's all in English plus the number, like the 12 and like those are British.
No, it's got some Czech on it. Oh, fig screwdorier, no. It's got some Czech on it. Maybe they just were too lazy to translate everything else. Could be.
Or maybe they knew only the stupid dumb Americans would watch stupid dumb movie.
Oh, I love that. Similar films though. To this one, I have to say are probably like cult classic wise. Are probably like Donnie Darko, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Similar kind of like. I'd chuck this movie in that category.
If Silent Hill
that movie too.
If Silent Hill was like an intentionally dumb Zack Snyder action movie, then that's what it would be.
I think Silent Hill, that's all I'm talking about. That movie, it's got like, the acting is so bad, but the way they put the story and everything else is really good. So if they just had a little bit better actors, I think the movie would have done a lot better.
This or Silent Hill?
No, Silent Hill.
Oh.
We got off topic.
Yeah, we got off topic there, but yeah.
Movie of my life.
So that's it, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
that's about it.
You got an empty case. It's very sexy. Look at this. Yeah. Commercials.
Commercials, yes.
Oh yeah, so I think at the beginning of this film, since it is a DVD, back when DVDs had commercials, this one has an autoplay theme.
Yes.
Including one for Inception. This has a very Inception vibe, actually. Which one came out first, you think?
Inception was like 2009, 2010, something.
Oh, really? It's that old? Okay. Yeah. All right, so this one might have been copying it a little bit.
Yeah.
You never know.
We got really off topic there. Thank you guys for watching. Bye. Say bye, Ananya.
Did you bring the chips? No? Okay.